And welcome back to another hydroponics video. In this video I'm going to go through everything you need to grow plants like these. And these are just grown in buckets, set and forget, and you have a ridiculous amount of food at home. Let's get started and show you all the bits and pieces you're going to need. So you're only going to need a few things to do this at home. This is the Kratky method of hydroponics, which is probably the easiest way of doing it. You don't need any sort of pipes, you don't need multiple holes drilled or anything like that. It is very, very simple, very easy. I'm going to go through the basics of what you need, and obviously you'll need some sort of bucket. Now, depending on what plant you're going to grow, you need a decent sized bucket. So this is about a 20-litre bucket, which is what, 6 gallons or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you want something big enough to hold enough solution that you don't have to keep topping it up. And you ideally want a lid as well. So these buckets came with a lid. They're actually free buckets. And if you ask any of the food processing places for buckets and stuff, a lot of them have them to give away. And obviously food grade you don't want any nasty chemicals or anything in it. So you want something with a lid. You want pots, and ideally pots with holes in them. And these are designed for pond plants and stuff like that, so you can get them from the hardware store, or you can just use a normal pot and drill holes in them. Yeah, pot size is relative to plant size, but we're using something about that sort of size, which is what, 6 inches, 8 inches, something like that, so 20 centimeters and maybe 15 centimeter diameter, so whatever that is. Yeah, you can work that out, but roughly a pot that sort of size. Now you want to fill them up with some sort of media. You can get these clay ball things from hardware places like that, which just is a normal hydroponic medium, or you can get perlite, which is a little bit cheaper, and it just looks like that stuff. And all that's going to do is fill your pot up, and the nutrients is going to soak through it so that the plants can actually get their roots trapped in this and grow through and get the nutrients. So that's pretty important. If you use big rocks or something like that, it's probably not going to work. Fine pebbles, possibly. You could probably get away with sand, as long as the sand doesn't go through the holes, and you'll be right. Now, with your solution, you want two different things. You want some sort of NPK fertilizer, which is just a fertilizer that works in water. And there is multiple things online with how much of this to use per volume of water. And same with calcium nitrite, which is the calcium form for the plants. You'll need one of these weird stick things or something to measure the conductivity of the water, and that will tell you how much of this stuff to put in, because it's different for different types of plants. You can pick these up super cheap on eBay or hydroponic shops and stuff like that. Same with all this stuff. There's usually a bottle A and a bottle B. If you want to do it on a smaller scale, we've just got big bags of this stuff because we're doing a lot of hydroponics. That's all. And you will need a basic little pH test kit, which you can get from any aquarium place, and something to adjust your pH, because most plants want the water slightly acidic. If you're not too sure about that, ask an aquarium shop. They'll be able to explain it to you, or you can comment in the comments. I can explain GH and KH and pH and all that wonderful stuff for you. But all you need to know is check your water. This is super important, because if you get this right, all the plants grow 10 times as fast without doing that, if that even makes sense. So if you don't even do any of that sort of stuff and just dump your fertilizer in and don't test it, it might work, might not work. Or it might work and then you're just about to harvest and then they all die, which you do not want. So very important to check your pH, see what that is, balance all your water first. Same with the right amount of nutrients for the plants. Okay, now that we've got all that sorted, you will need a drill as well. So you can just use a drill like that, something to make a hole, so you can get cheap little hole drilling things and all that. Let's jump to some holes in buckets. So the only holes you're going to need is one in the lid, and all you have to do is just draw around the actual pot and then just cut a little bit smaller than the pot, and that is just going to recess in. So obviously it sits halfway into the bucket, well maybe about a third into the bucket. So what you want to do is drill a little hole in the bucket, and this is only if you're going to have them outside or where rain is going to get there and so on, so it doesn't completely flood the bucket, so that the water level is never higher than that. And you want your water level about maybe 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters, about an inch or so on the bottom of that little pot. So you want that always in the water. But as the plant grows, it's going to absorb all the liquid, obviously the nutrients in the bucket. Your water level is going to go down, but the roots are going to grow down as well. So you don't need to keep topping it up or anything like that. So that overflow hole there is pretty much just if it's a heavy downfall of rain, doesn't completely flood your pot and drown your plant. Because yeah, the roots that grow in the water are different than roots that grow out of the water, if that even makes sense. But that's just a little safety precaution that you do not need to do. Now that we've got all those in there, what we're going to do is check our pH of the water. And we live quite alkaline. Well, our water is quite alkaline where we live. So we've put some of the acid buffer in our water, and we're just going to test what our pH is. Most plants like the water acidic for hydroponics. So we're going to aim for about 6 or so. So we're just going to fill up a little thing like that. We're going to do this one-handed. I'm going to shake up our indicator solution. We want this to be a lovely yellow color, which it should be a lovely yellow color. So usually you are putting a little cap on that and shaking it, but we know that water's acidic anyway. There we go. So you match that on your little color chart with your pH, yaddy, yaddy, yaddy. Now that we've got the pH right, we're going to use our magical stick thing. One-handed, take the top off that. Now we haven't added any solution, so it's probably going to be low. That little red bit there, depending on the plant, it will tell you, well actually where are we? Yes, there we are, the black bit, the EC meter. So the EC is relative depending on what plant you're going to plant in there. So things like lettuce and that are low, tomatoes and that are a lot higher. We're expecting this to not be overly high. Yeah, we're about 1.2. So for most plants, we are going to go for about that 2.4, but it's relative again. So if you Google what EC you want for what particular plant, and then you can target that. So then all we're going to do is put equal amounts of our fertilizer and our calcium, dissolve that, pour that in there until we get the EC where we want it. So for these plants, we're going to go for about that 2.4. So once that is sorted and we've got all our solution in there, we're going to add media to our pots. And that is pretty simple. So if I take this pot out of the nutrients, you've got about 1 inch or so of water absorbing through those little clay balls, if you can kind of make out right there, those wet little clay balls. So what will happen is when you plant your plant in the medium, and we're a little bit lazy with this, so this is just a random type of New Zealand spinach. What we're going to do is grab one of these out of here, and we're not really going to remove the dirt or anything from it. We're just going to put the dirt and all in the middle of that. And as the roots grow, they're slowly going to get all the nutrients from that. Once it hits the nutrients, it will take off ridiculously fast. So you can use tomatoes, celery, all sorts of stuff, bok choy, you name it, depending on what you want to go for. But yeah, the nutrients solution is different for different types of plants. So just Google that depending on what type of plant you've got, and same with the pH, and you'll be fine. But that is pretty much the basics on how to set up a simple method. If you do it undercover, it is even easier. You just need enough light for the plants, but you can obviously have grow lights going above them or anything like that. If you've got any questions, comment down below. It is pretty basic. You don't need to buy giant big bags of stuff. You can recycle a lot of stuff as well. And once you've got these things set up like this, yeah, you can just reuse them and reuse them and reuse them. All you have to do is just change the nutrients for different plants. That is it. The buckets themselves and the pots and the clay balls are going to last for years and years and years. So it's sort of a one-time purchase, and yeah, your EC meter will last for ages. Your pH stuff is pretty cheap as well, and away you go. If you did like this video, click the thumbs up so I know, and feel free to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks heaps for watching. And for a little bit of a bonus in this video, once you get used to hydroponic solution and you don't want a whole lot of buckets sitting in front of you all the time, you can set up a little system like this. So this has only been set up with lettuce for about 3 weeks. I think we're 2.5 weeks into it, and the lettuce is pretty much almost ready to harvest. This is another set and forget method. It is PVC pipe, it is a little tub of solution down the bottom, and we have a solar panel there, which is pumping the water when the sun hits the solar panel into this black PVC pipe. And these are just sitting in the pipe with their little mesh containers like that, and the little clay ball media. So they are working super well. This is just the same idea, except there's a pump pumping the solution through the pipe, so you don't have big buckets sitting around. So a little bit more bits and pieces you need for this method, but it works equally the same. There is our control there, which is a lettuce, same age, planted the same time as these ones. And yeah, look at the difference. If you can even grab that one out, that is the difference in size. Same age, but yeah, hydroponic solution has just made these grow absolutely crazy fast. And they got hit by a storm last week and still managed to kind of survive, because we lost a few leaves. Anyway, if you want to see how this is all set up, there's a link on the screen right now, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks heaps for watching.